Hello everyone and welcome on De Papier et de Rêves channel. I'm Ursula and today I will be experimenting with you and with some hot press paper. I usually use cold press and rough paper as it has a little bit of texture in it. And in the past I've used some hot press paper, but more for illustration with fine details. So today I will use this hot press paper with my watercolor style. So I start this watercolor painting with a very damp paper. I put it in the sink and let it totally soaking in water. And I'm using the wet on wet techniques to add color into it. And first thing I can notice is that my colors don't move as much as on a rough paper or on a cold press paper. They have a tendency to stay in place where I put it in the first place. They are a little bit blurry, but they don't move as much as in another paper. As I didn't know how the paper would react and how I would react to the paper, I chose to paint a quite common subject, a sky with lots of clouds in it. It's not a sunset, but it's quite close, so the lights are very golden. This paper is very tricky to work with. I did a first recording before this one, and I did choose another subject. It was an hydrangea, so it's quite an unusual subject for me too. But the color wasn't blending very well, and my color seems very off. The mixes of color was not good, so I think this paper is messing with me. Before trying this paper, I didn't know that I have so much reflex with my paper and the way I paint on my paper. I've changed just that in this painting and I'm completely lost and I don't know what to do and how to do it. But this change is very interesting because I'm going out of my comfort zone and I can learn and gain something in return. But let's go back to this painting. I've started to add some colors on my paper and I've used 3 blues in this painting in order to have a nice gradient between those blues. It's a bit much, but it's okay. So I've used Ultramarine blue at the top because it's the darkest one, and then Cobalt blue and Cerulean blue at the bottom, as it has a little bit of green hue, so it's perfect for the horizon line. For the clouds, of course I didn't put any paint on it in a certain place, but in order to add a little bit more of definition and to get some hard edges, I use a paper towel to absorb all the water in certain area so that I can get hard edges. For the cloud shadow, I've used a mix of cobalt blue and burnt sienna. It's making a very nice and soft grey, but I use a little bit more blue than burnt sienna in order to have a blue grey, a cold grey, so that all the golden light from the sun will pop a little bit more. The hot press paper is a very soft paper with really no texture at all on it. It's a great paper for illustration because if you want to scan it, it will not show any grain of paper in the scan image. So that's a good point to know. And this utilization for sky is very convenient because I get lots of soft transition in color. All my gradients are very soft. The color mixing are all very, very soft. And that's a bit crazy because in my first attempt with this paper, I didn't achieve to get this softness in my blending of colors. I managed to get a soft transition and soft blending because of 2 points. First, I was watching very carefully how much water was on my paper and how much water was on my brush. And second point is my brush. I didn't use natural air brush because they have too much water in the hair, and for this particular occasion I think it's better to work with synthetic airbrush. And now I've started the second layer. I let my paper totally dry before starting this second layer. And one thing I can notice is that the colors are very bright and they didn't dry as pale as they could have been with a cold press or rough paper. And that's good to know because I can use less pigment and still have bright colors. On this second layer, I will concentrate myself on just simple detail on the clouds, like darken some areas and make some edges a little bit more present. For now, my clouds are very woolly and very blurry, but if you look at the sky with clouds, there are some parts of clouds that are very sharp, and I want to see that in my painting. For those details, I will use a lot of gradient, so I place a bit of gray in the area I want, and then I graduate it until total transparency with just a brush with water. It's a bit tricky to make a nice gradient with this paper because right now it's totally dry, and when I place my first drop of color, it will dry quite quickly, so I have to move fast and make my gradient with my clean water very fast. For this part, I'm using a fine brush in synthetic air. It's an Escoda Versatil, and it's a very convenient brush at this stage because I can manage very finely the quantity of water I have in my brush and on my paper. And this brush have a synthetic bristle, as I said, and they have quite a lot of spring in it, so I can really make fine details with it quite easily. And now let's talk about supplies. For the brushes, I've used an Escoda Ùltimo number 8, a Princeton Neptune 1/4 inch, an Escoda Versatil 1/2 inch, and an Escoda Versatil number 6. For the color, I've used Ultramarine blue, Cobalt blue, Cerulean blue, Quinacridone gold, Verona gold ochre, burnt sienna, and for the last detail at the end I will use natural tint. And my paper is from Arches in hot pressed. For the last step in this painting, I will just add some foreground to my sky. I'm adding city lights and building and trees in order to have a little bit of context in my image. I have a hard time to just paint a sky. I think that my image needs a little bit of context to be understandable. This experiment with hot press paper was very hard for me. I didn't expect to have such problems with my usage of the paper. I had no clue that I had so many habits in my painting techniques, and it was a little bit frustrating to paint this picture. First, because I did have a hard time painting this, and second, because I had to paint a picture 2 times before getting something that I was somehow happy with it. But if this is just a question of habits, I just have to retry and retry and retry again to make this paper work. I just have to get newer habits with this paper. And I want to try also other things on this paper, like an abstract painting maybe, because there is many watercolor painters that use hot press paper and get a very nice effect and texture with this kind of paper. And please take a look to the blog post. I will put the link just down below in the description box. I will put a picture of my first watercolor painting with this hot press paper, and you will understand how bad it was. And also I will put some example of illustration I've done on hot press paper. It's just really another style, but maybe you can have an idea of what I'm doing with it. And this video is ending. Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. Please tell me what you think about this painting in the comment below, and I will be happy to respond. See you soon.